I'm the Product Sales Supervisor here at Teakdecking Systems. We've been building decks for 43 years. And the products line came on after, and it was from our customers. We're saying, hey, we want to use what you guys are using. And now it's become a full line of products that are known globally as the professional's choice. I normally would do a demonstration of our caulking, because really our caulking is where we began, and it's what's probably most of you are familiar with, our SIS-440. It comes in the cartridge form, which is the normal black, white, and gray, and then we also carry it in the sausage form. And when I used to go on the road and do these, I would always do a physical demonstration with the tools that you see here on this table. Now we have a full plethora of videos, and they're all on our YouTube channel. But really our caulking one was the one that had the most views and likes. I would like to share my screen and show you guys about an 8-minute video that it goes into depth about our seam preparation and how to shoot the caulking. It's all about the actual prep, because if you don't take the proper steps, no caulking will last, and with the proper steps, the caulking can actually last the life of the boat.
As the leader in teak decking for boats, yachts, commercial ships, we're often asked questions about our caulking. This video will show us how to remove the old caulking from your deck and re-caulk your seams. Over time, the caulking on your deck can become loose, cracked, or damaged due to exposure to sun, salt water, and normal wear and tear. Removing old caulk will allow you to properly seal the seams and also prevents water from penetrating the deck's core. If the caulk fails, water can seep into the core, causing it to expand, rot, and delaminate. Prior to undertaking your re-caulking project, you should perform a survey of your deck. You can use a small penknife, ruler, or tape measure to determine how much depth you have left. Since different areas of your deck wear at different rates, you should perform these checks throughout the bow, walkways, cockpit, swim platform, and other areas with teak decking. Performing these checks will help you to decide what processes are necessary to proceed, how much caulking is needed, and if further work such as deepening the seams that are less than 3/16. If your deck is fastened with screws and plugs, you may need to check how much wood depth you have under the plugs. Screws sometimes can be removed and new ones countersunk even further into the deck. Or if your deck is securely glued down, simply remove the screws and replace the teak plugs. Let's go over the proper ways to remove the caulking manually. To remove old caulking, we recommend using a Teakdecking Systems reefing hook and seam sander. First, use a sharp razor knife to cut along both sides of the caulk seam as close to the teak as possible. If you're having trouble keeping the cutting edge straight, you can use a straight edge as a guide. If you're a skilled carpenter, you may also use a router or a saw. Then, using the TDS reefing hook, plunge the tip into the seam and pull the caulking out. While doing that, you can use your hands to pull the caulking strip while running the hook behind it to detach it from the seam. Afterwards, using a reefing hook at an angle, you can scrape the remaining caulking fragments from the sides of the teak. Your objective here is to remove as much of the caulking as possible with the reefing hook. Next, seam sand by adjusting the seam sander blade to the depth of your seam by using the screws on the back side of the sander. Place the blade down into the seam and use a back and forth motion to sand both sides. This will remove any remaining residue from the old caulking and give the teak a fresh bonding surface. Remove any loose debris by brushing, vacuuming, or using compressed air. To prepare the wood for good caulk adhesion, use acetone on a lint-free rag to wipe the seam thoroughly. Stretch it over an object slightly smaller than your seam's width, such as a seam sander or a putty knife. Soak the rag in the acetone and use a back and forth motion to remove any remaining substances. Keep turning the rag so that there is a clean surface exposed each time. Make sure you keep the rag damp with the acetone, and the acetone actually de-oils the teak. Be sure to caulk within a week of de-oiling the seams, as the oil of the teak will come back to the surface, and the de-oiling process will need to be repeated. For small repairs, you can use tape to prevent the excess caulking from getting into your teak, making sanding easier. This is especially helpful for minor repairs. Apply the tape firmly along both sides of the seam. For the remainder of the demonstration, we will use the tape method. Later in the video, I will show you how to remove the tape properly. Next, apply the bond breaker tape using 3M's number 218 fine line tape, which is available at Sherwin-Williams automotive paint stores. Some sizes are available on Amazon or from a TDS reseller. This tape is recommended with seams of 1/4 inch or deeper as it helps to prolong the seam life. Push the tape down into the bottom of the seam using a previous roll or the core of a used roll, or you can cut down a piece of door skin. Choose a tape size that fits easily into the seam. If it doesn't easily fit, then you want to go down a size. Never try to use a tape that's too big for the seam. Make sure that the base of the seam is clean and reasonably flat so that the tape adheres to the bottom of the seam. This tape will prevent the caulking from bonding to the bottom of the seam, allowing it to expand and contract with the deck's natural, constant movement. The caulking seal is actually made on the walls of the seam, not at the bottom. If the caulk sticks to the base of the seam, it stresses the seam walls, increasing the possibility for seam failure when the teak dries and shrinks out slightly. If you see a teak deck which is very dry and there is a ditch in the seam, that seam most likely had not utilized the bond breaker tape. Now that you've applied the tape, you're ready to fill your seams with caulking. Use Teakdecking Systems SIS-440, the industry's leading caulking. The caulking is flexible, UV stable, chemical resistant, and has minimal shrinkage. It's easy to work with, sands easy, and has a smooth finish. You can use a manual cartridge gun for small jobs and repairs. For larger jobs, you can use a sausage gun, either pneumatic or manual. To use the cartridge, cut the tip at a 45-degree angle and puncture the foil seal with a poker. Be sure to fully puncture the foil seal so that it does not create any resistance. Here's a pro tip. Pinch the tip of the nozzle with a pair of pliers to ensure that it fits all the way down in the bottom of the seam. Insert the plastic nozzle into the bottom of the seam, pulling the caulking gun towards you. Be sure that the seam is filled to the top with no air bubbles. Another pro tip is don't stop and start in the seam because that can create air bubbles. Try to caulk in a smooth, continuous process for best results. You should observe that the caulking is crowning up behind the nozzle. Once the seams are filled, use a flexible putty knife to push the caulking further into the seam. This is referred to as spooning or tooling. You need to press hard on the knife, pulling it towards yourself in a continuous smooth motion. You'll want to observe a slight crown or raised area when you're done spooning. This will allow for a slight reduction due to the curing agent in the caulking when it's evaporating. It's okay to remove the excess caulking from your tape with your putty knife, but do not scavenge the caulking or shrinkage may occur. This could possibly lead to a repair. If you tape off your seams to preserve as much of the teak as possible, we recommend removing the tape immediately for best results, or wait until the caulking is completely cured. The panel must sit for a period of time, typically 3 to 5 days depending on your climate, humidity, and seam size. Wide, deep seams and gray and white caulking must be allowed to cure for longer periods of time. If you're in doubt as to how long your seams require to cure, please contact us and we will help you through that. In an average temperatures, humidity of 72 degrees Fahrenheit and 50% relative humidity, seams will cure at a rate of approximately 1 to 2 millimeters per day. If the thickness of your teak deck allows it, we highly recommend sanding your deck prior to beginning your recaulking project. This particularly applies if you are not planning to tape off your caulk seams. There are several reasons for this. First, sanding will smooth the ridges of the deck that have developed over time. Taking care of sanding prior to caulking will also help apply it much easier. And if the seams are not taped off, this will result in much less sanding after the caulking is cured. What appears to happen if you don't sand prior to the caulking is that the ridges and depressions of the weathered deck trap the excess caulking much deeper into the teak and require a lot more sanding. Repairing and replacing the caulk on your deck only enhances the beauty of your deck, and it will also keep it healthy and provide longevity. We hope that you found this video helpful, and remember, if you need any help or advice, please feel free to contact us on our website or give us a call.
All right, so yeah, that's our most in-depth video that we have, and it's really the most important one as far as the caulking lasting a long time. I usually hand out these little caulk worms that we make, and just so that customers can stretch on them. I mean, these things, you can't do that with any normal caulking. So it really remains flexible, and it's just a great product. And I don't say that just because I work here. I've done installations, I've used the leading competitors, and there's just by far the best product out there is the SIS-440. And I'm sure you hear that from your customers. But and I just wanted to tell you that the two tools that we have, the reefing hook and the seam sander, they're just something that every boat owner, if they have a teak deck, they got to have one of these. They last a lifetime. We've actually just recently changed the material on these. They will now be PVC, so they're no longer going to be the wood. We've had problems shipping them overseas because if there's just one wood seam sander in a container, the whole thing has to get fumigated. So we thought we'd just go to a composite material like this. And if you didn't know, we are global. We have an office in Barcelona, and we have a warehouse where we're building the teak decks. Not as big as the one we have here. We have a 100,000 square foot warehouse. We have a fairly large operation over there, and we're building the big luxury decks. And it's just cool to say that and be able to say that we work with the top 1% of the 1% is what I say. But yeah, after our caulking, people, installers and contractors wanted to know what kind of glue we use, and we use a 2-part epoxy. We started out with this, the orange one here. It's called FE180, and the FE stands for fitting epoxy. And it really is, it's got great bonding strength. It's a 1-to-1 mix ratio. It's wonderful for if you have any vertical surfaces, because it holds the tooth a little more, because it is a little thicker, because when mixed, it's almost the consistency of peanut butter. We used to call it peanut butter glue. We still sell a lot of this. People really, love it, but our installers, and even me, when we're installing, we want something that's a little more fluid, and we also want something that we can fare with, because there's never a boat that's flat. So there's always going to be these pockets and these voids, and that's where the water gets down in and can cause problems later. And that's why we developed the FFE 200. So they're both flexible, but the FFE is more flexible. We actually make this in-house here in our Sarasota warehouse. And on average right now, we're making like 100 2-gallon kits of this about twice a month. And we're shipping a lot of it over to our operation in Europe. But it's just a great epoxy. When this is mixed, it's more like the consistency of mayonnaise. So it's easier to work with. You can fare with it, and then once it's kicked and cured, then you can sand that and use the same epoxy to glue your teak down with. And that's really what this sample here is showing, how we glued down this teak here, and we use a 3/16 notch trowel, and you get about 30 square feet per mixed gallon of material. So the ones you see here are 2 gallons. So this is a 2-gallon kit, 1 gallon of base, 1 gallon of activator. But these come in sizes of 1 gallon, so they have the smaller ones, and then for the 200, we even have a 2-quart size. It's for real small jobs. It might be better for your DIY and retail guys. But just a wonderful epoxy. It's become very popular. You don't find this type of epoxy that's specified for this type of work anywhere but really TDS. So it's a good thing to promote. We also have our AP100, which we've had for a long time, and this is it comes in this small kit, and it also one size up. This is a 1-pint kit, but it also comes in a 2-pint kit, and it was really designed for plugs. And it really is, the AP stands for all purpose, so you really can use it for anything. But there are still decks out there that you use fasteners and plugs, and this is a great glue for when they have to replace those plugs after screwing the screws back down. And so that's a great epoxy for that, or any type of all-purpose application. So that really concludes the 2 epoxies that we have, or 3. But then we started to get into composite decks, and people wanted something that's a little easier to use. It doesn't have to get mixed. So we went to a single component modified polymer sealant. This is called our MPS 4000. This is demonstrated here on these two planks, but this is just a wonderful epoxy. It's similar to your 5200. You got the ease of shooting it with a gun, so no mixing. You can get it into tighter spots, and it just has amazing green strength. So when you and that means when that part's down, it suctions, and it really forms a bond that's, and I usually pass this around, and I offer whoever I'm doing the demonstration for, if you could take one of these battens off, I'll give you $100, and I still haven't gotten anybody that can rip it off. So just a very good, easy to use single component adhesive that, it kind of doubles up with our epoxies as something that's easier to use for the customers. We're going to move on to our cleaners. I'm sure you guys, again, these look a little different because of our branding change, but all of our products are still the same great products. Our Eco 100, which is a powder form, and it comes in a 5-gallon pail, an 8-pound powder, which is this one, and then a 2-pound powder that you see here. And really the powder gives a lot of grit to work with. Unlike a liquid, it really, gets into the fibers of the teak and releases the dirt. And so, but the two differences between our Eco 100 and Eco 300 is not just that the Eco 300 is liquid, but the Eco 300 has the added brightener in it so that it helps to keep the golden hue to the teak. But we actually suggest to our customers to get both of the cleaners and alternate the two cleaners in between your regular scheduled maintenance cleanings. So they work really good. They're eco-friendly. There's not a lot of products out there that you can say you can rinse right off and it's not going to kill the fish and the turtles. It is a very powerful, but once it's mixed with water, it eventually becomes inert and doesn't hurt anything. So, I know there's a lot of products out there that might work well, but they are damaging the teak. They're damaging the surfaces of these decks. And I've been down and done some of these in the Bahamas, and similar two-part products that are acidic. They're actually damaging the teak, and they're not allowed in the marinas now in the Bahamas. They've actually become illegal. So they test the guys, the detailers, the boat guys that are cleaning the decks, and they're not allowed on those docks with those damaging products. So we're happy to know that all of our products are eco-friendly and they're user-friendly as well. You don't have to get out a hazmat suit to use them. We do suggest that you wear gloves, but it's not going to, burn your fingernails off, which some of those can. We were never intended to be a products company. This all came because people wanted to use our great products, and now it's grown into this, this line, and we're just continuing to grow the line each year. So you will start to see more and more products, maybe products that are more designed for specific cleaning, but this is for a deck that needs to just maintenance cleaning. You can keep that golden hue by alternating the two. I'm going to do a quick demonstration of the Eco 100 and Eco 300, and this is just a panel that we've had sitting in our back 40 for a long time that's oxidized and just been neglected. Hopefully a person that has a teak deck is not going to let it get to this this stage, but it does happen, and people they don't want to use something that's going to hurt things. So great to use the 100. So the directions will tell you to wet the deck surface. So that's what we're going to do first. We're going to do the 100 powder first. So wet the deck good. And then I've kind of modified my cap here to make it out like a salt and pepper shaker. But you really just shake this the powder right onto the deck surface. Cover it pretty good, and I usually suggest a little more water on top. It's very important that while they're cleaning with our Eco 100 that they don't allow it to dry, because they're starting to work already, and those little white granules will leave little white spots. So I'm gonna go ahead and start scrubbing this. I did want to show you guys the Eco 300 as well. Both of the products are used full strength. You would normally put this in a mop bucket and mop it on, but I'm just going to put a little on the surface here, and we'll go ahead and scrub that in. And you could see it really has that brightener in it, and the longer you leave it on there, the more it will brighten up. But this is a non-directional brush too, so you can really go any way you want, unlike the deck brush that you have to go against the grain. I like to go in small little circles. Normally, each of the products you would let them sit for approximately 10 minutes, and then you would scrub them once again and then rinse them thoroughly. But I'm just, for time purposes, you really might not be able to tell there, but there's, with minimal effort, that's really made that teak look a lot better. And just so that you guys, this is a panel that's been dried, and it really was just cleaned once with the 100 and the 300, and you could see the wow difference there. So just a powerful product, but still eco-friendly, which is always a good thing for the environment. Those are our Eco 100 and Eco 300, available in 3 sizes. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to a product called the 509 Spot Lifter. It's a powdered cleaner that's good on everything from teak, composite, canvas, carpet, fabric. This is really a product that, is just great to have on the boat when you ain't got time to get the mop bucket out and something happens. I always say, you're out with your buddies and, you're eating chicken wings and you drop that greasy chicken wing on the deck, and you got to treat it so that it doesn't become a stain that's gonna, be noticing every day you go out on the boat. We don't have the chicken wings today, but we do have some hydraulic liquid, which is always something that's going to be on a deck, and also some diesel fuel. So I'm just going to apply a little drip of each of these. Hopefully we're not spilling a lot of this, but sometimes it happens. And I'm just going to rub it in a little bit. And of course, if this happened, we probably wouldn't just sit there and let it sit for a long time. We'd get something and try to mop up as much of it as we can. So I'm just going to wipe it, but it's still embedded into that teak. You shake it, just a spray. And it takes a few minutes, but this will haze up, and actually it's lifting the dirt, or lifting the stain from inside those fibers. And but we'll move on and we'll come back to this. But I wanted to go ahead and tell you about our teak sealer and protector. That's back here. This is comes in a gallon and a quart. It's always been our stance to leave your decks natural, but of course, customers' preference, they want something, they feel like they have to protect the teak even more. And so we've designed this product. It's a water-based product, and it has great UV protection. We recommend it for not really the whole boat, but we do like to do high traffic areas such as your cockpit or swim platform. A quart of this will cover approximately 50 to 67 square feet, so it covers quite a bit, very easy to apply. We have a sample here, and I wish we had touch-o-vision, because this side is coated and this side isn't. And if you run your hand on this, it does change the color slightly, which some customers like, but it's still a natural color. And it also raises the grain of the teak, so it actually gives it some non-slip properties, which is always a great thing when you're using a product that's actually doubling as protection, but also keeping people safe from slipping around, because decks can be quite slippery when they're wet. So that's our teak sealer. Again, that's both quarts or gallons. The gallon covers almost 230 square feet, or 250 square feet. So just a great product if you have a customer that wants to coat something but not use your traditional mineral spirit based flammable stuff that's hard to get, and that's very hard to get off. So your stuff like Semco, it's a great product, but it's when you have to remove it, if you don't reapply it at the right time, you're going to have to strip all that off, and really that requires sanding and teak is too expensive to be sanding, so this can actually be removed completely with 409. So it's an easy, you can grab some 409 and strip it all the way off, rather than the other where you'd have to sand it or possibly, you know, use a varnish remover, which is also damaging. We've always been teak, but we got into composites, and we wanted to offer a product that was, you know, that's gonna seal your composite. So we have a composite sealer, and this is actually forms an alkali resistant hydrophobic barrier. And I have a sample here. First off, we'll just backtrack a little bit. You can see our 509 now has, you know, been powdered, and you can just brush this off. And just to kind of give you, I'll just wipe it a little bit with some water so that you can see there's no stain there. It's been lifted up, and it's, you know, it has been totally removed, where, you know, if that sat there normally and you didn't treat it, it would definitely be a stain that you would, you know, keep noticing. Now back to the composite sealer. This side of this composite is sealed and this side isn't. And you can just see how it beads up on that side, where on this side it really soaks in. And I don't know if you guys can see that totally with the camera, but it soaks in on this side, and you got bead marks on that side. So just showing, and that's just 2 coats. This stuff's very easy to apply as well. So that's our composite sealer. And composites are really where people are going these days. Of course, the prices of teak have gone, you know, really high. So we wanted to be able to provide our customers with another option that's not teak. So we actually started out with this product, which is called S-Tech. And this stuff comes already on a phenolic sheet, a fiberglass sheet. And this is very easy to install, and it's much cheaper than the teak. We have it in both the smoke color here and the biscuit. And it really, the design is limitless with all of our composites. We've had customers that, you know, have fish that they put into the actual, you know, deck surface. And, you know, it does have a little more heat to it than the teak, as the teak is more absorbing of heat. The S-Tech will have a little more reflective heat, so we have noticed that it's a little hotter, and that's why we really only offer it in these 2 colors, because obviously they have other colors like slate, and they're just, you know, extremely hot, especially here in Florida. So this is where most of our production boat customers use, like Chris Craft and Scout and Tierra and all that. But we also have the guys who are replacing a teak deck, and we had to have a product that was gonna, you know, be that same thickness. And that's really where we developed this Herculon product, and we poured it and made our own, what we call TDS composite deck. So this is actually on a Keiko board, but as you can see, just like a teak deck, it's the same thickness, which is important because, you know, otherwise you have all that fiberglass work to redo if you're going to something thinner like this. So we wanted to be able to, and this stuff's very light, and, you know, again, it's the same material. So all of our material is polyurethane, and that includes the seams. So even these colored seams, and we have white, gray, and black, similar to our teak decks. And this is just showing how you can finger joint and, you know, make a butt joint to join the actual panels. So that's also in the biscuit flavor as well. I call flavor, but the color. There's a lot of soft versions out there. I'm sure you're familiar with C Deck and the foam decks. They're great. They're great on your feet. They feel good, but they don't last. And, you know, we wanted to provide a product that was still a peel and stick. So we came up with this product, which is called C-Sole. It's the same polyurethane pourable material that we make with these Herculon sheets, the composite sheets. So just another, you know, option, especially for, you know, the DIY guys that, you know, ain't got a CNC. They can possibly, you know, cut this with a saw and, you know, do their own installation. So we also offer that in both biscuit and smoke. And then our last kind of newest product we have is the cork, which is a totally sustainable product. I never knew that this stuff grew on trees, and that they harvest it, and you can actually go back and harvest it again. So these people out here are really worried about the world, which we all should be. This is definitely a great option. It has acoustic properties, which keep the sound deafening and everything down inside the cabin. Definitely pleasant on the feet when you're stepping on it. And again, it's just easy to repair. Like all of our composite materials, unlike a teak deck, when there's damage, when you drop an anchor or anything on here, you're going to have to replace that whole batten. Whereas something happens on a composite deck, we can actually send you a repair compound where you can scuff out that bad area, mix the two parts, and apply that in there, and then come back and sand it. It usually does change the color of it for a little while, but after some time in the UV, it all blends in. So just a good thing about our composite decks is that they're easily repaired.